Simple idea to well-loved national institution. Now on BBC One, don't panic. Victoria's at home with the guard.
Here, want to find out about Dad's army? Meet me behind Jones's van. Don't tell nobody.
Do you know, there's never been a programme made about Dad's Army, which is the most affectionately regarded comedy programme in the history of television. So we're on a quest to find out just why it's so wonderful, which is really any excuse for me to drive Jones's van. Now, I have to warn you, this could be the only documentary made entirely in second gear. I'm sitting in my office with a stack of Dad's Army videos and a cup of tea, and I've watched 40 programmes. And I think I know now what makes it so wonderful. I'm going to go for fourth gear now. Yes!
Bob, it's on. Dad's Army's on.
Don't panic! Don't panic!
It's still popular. I mean, people really do love it.
It was definitely one of those shows where it was a family event.
Excuse me, Uncle Sergeant.
I was part of something which was going to be important in the history of television.
Stupid boy.
When comedy really, really works well, you know, the secret ingredient is magic.
It was a miracle. The cast was right, the time was right, the script was right, the tunes were right, and the whole situation was right. It's as simple as that.
Don't let me beat it to the Germans when our victory is ultimately won.
Dad's Army ran from 1968 to 1977. That's 9 years. The Second World War was only 6, and that's never been repeated. Like all good sitcoms, it's based on a very simple idea.
A bunch of blokes in a church hall defending their country. Oh, don't panic, got there. But of course it's much more than that. It's about a vanished England, it's about class, it's about relationships, it's about war, and although it's an ensemble piece, to me the linchpin of the whole thing is the relationship of the two main characters, Mannering and Wilson, and those fantastic performances of John Le Mesurier and Arthur Lowe. Stupid boy.
Both went to public schools, didn't you?
No, I can't help feeling, sir, you've got a little bit of a chip on your shoulder about that.
There's no chip on my shoulder, Wilson. I'll tell you what there is on my shoulder, though. 3 pips, and don't you forget it.
Captain Mannering loved being in charge of the platoon. He made himself in charge of it, really. And when it all started, of course, everybody was volunteering for everything, and he decided to volunteer to himself to become a captain.
Now, the first thing to do is to appoint a properly appointed commander. A what, sir? Appoint a properly appointed commander. That's me. All right? All right.
People always say, was Arthur Lowe really pompous? Well, no, he wasn't, but he didn't suffer fools gladly.
Mannering was the best example of pomposity ever.
Don't think I gave you permission to sit, did I?
He did get a bit carried away with his own importance or own sense of importance, you know, and that he could fight the Germans single-handed.
You kind of have an empathy for, and you do feel for him. And at the end of the day, there were plenty of episodes where he showed himself to be a truly good person as well.
We very rarely get a chance to meet on as equals.
No, you don't.
However, tonight you may call me George.
Oh, thanks awfully, sir.
And I shall call you Arthur.
Oh, will you really? Oh, good.
The change of Arthur Lowe as the aggressive captain, and he has from time to time to speak to his wife on the telephone, and he said, get them to do so and so and so and so and so and so, and the complete change. Hello, Elizabeth?
Hello, Elizabeth. Taken a long time to answer, dear. Where have you been? Fighting. I've been down in the air raid shelter. Oh. I might have a little surprise for you tonight. No,
David and Jimmy wanted her to appear in an episode, and Arthur wouldn't have it.
No.
And I quite agree, because it was, Elizabeth, she's indoors, and we all got this different idea of what Elizabeth was like.
I think the only time we had a possible glimpse of her body was when her great big bum was in the top bunk, and Arthur was underneath, Mannering was underneath. You wake, Elizabeth.
Stuck on the bottom bunk of a joyless marriage with the unseen Elizabeth, no wonder Captain Mannering was tempted elsewhere.
Why shouldn't have eaten all that cheese? Far too rich.
It's only Mannering that doesn't have anybody except his wife that's never seen until this one episode where Miss Fiona comes into his life.
It was out of character for Mannering to drop his guard, if you'll pardon the pun, and go chasing off after Carmen's character. But it just showed another side, another facet of his character.
Captain Mannering?
Yes?
Oh, I heard you were needing women helpers for the Home Guard. Is that right?
Yes, that is quite correct.
I played a character called Fiona Grain, who'd gone down to Warmington-on-Sea to take her mother away from the bombs in London, and he absolutely falls for her.
Fiona? A pretty name.
Oh. You think so?
Yes, it's always been one of my favourites.
Oh, thank you.
She says, would you mind taking your glasses off? Because I do feel it gets in the way of the warmth of one's eyes, and he sort of blossoms. It's so sweet that he grows and just wishes he didn't need the glasses. She realizes that he has a wife, so she decides to go back to London.
Stand clear, sir.
And pull those blinds down.
Promise you'll write.
Very well. I promise.
Make it soon.
Goodbye, George.
I would say something like the brief encounter thing actually was not out of character for Mannering. It added a new dimension to his character. And this was the other wonderful thing that happened in so many episodes. You suddenly found a facet of a well-loved character that you hadn't seen before.
It's like, you've got a blind shade, really, for the comedy to work, So, if it's gag, it doesn't work. You've got to have that, Not tears of the clown, crying on the inside and all that. But you've got to get the balance. You've got to strike the balance for the comedy to work.
Blow the bugle and bang the drum, go rum-ti-tiddly-tum-tum-tum.
It's a wonderfully complicated relationship between Mannering and Wilson, because Wilson is sort of so effortlessly upper class, has a lovely way with the ladies. Mannering, terribly unsure of himself, affects to despise the upper classes, but really maybe would like to be part of it. And of course the other complication is that Wilson is only the chief clerk at the Swallow Bank, Warmington-on-Sea, and Mannering is the bank manager.
You're absolutely right. I'm still the manager and you're the chief clerk.
Right.
I'm still the officer and you are still the sergeant, right? So put your socks up and get about your business at the bank.
All right, sir. Very well.
Well, the relationship between Captain Mannering and Wilson in the bank was a very strange one, because the manager in those days was God.
John the Measurer's character obviously came from, a very good family, upper class, and Arthur was made good from the ranks.
Being a member of the aristocracy explains quite a lot about your character.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
Wilson didn't give a sod, and this worried Captain Mannering.
Wilson, what are you doing?
I'm so sorry, sir, but I thought, as it was such a beautiful day, I thought while you were chatting away over there, I'd take advantage of this glorious sun and try and get myself a little bit of a tan.
There was no way that Wilson would possibly want to run the Home Guard. Not at all. In fact, he was only really there because Mannering told him to be.
He was actually in control, really. He was more in control of the men than Mannering was, really.
Are we to call the sergeant the Honourable Sergeant Wilson or Sergeant the Honourable Wilson?
I don't want any fuss. I just want to be like an ordinary sergeant.
I'm sure that would suit us all, Wilson.
John O'Meara was wished on me by Michael Mills, who was then the head of comedy. His remark was, he said, you must have John O'Meara, he suffers so beautifully.
Sometimes you'd see him do that before he answered, or while he was answering in some mild sort of, Mannering would have a go at him about something, and he'd say, yes, and he'd go, right, sir. He gets wise, and he'd wait till that's wise. And I realised that he was waiting for that light on the camera. It gave it this wonderful vagueness, which was very important to the show, and we took advantage of that a lot.
Now listen, Arthur.
Yes?
You're going to tell Captain Mannering that I'm not having Frank going on any more route marches.
I can't possibly do that.
Well, if you don't, and Frank wakes up in the night again, you won't be there to hear it.
We knew that he was carrying on this long-standing affair with Pike's mother, but we never mentioned anything. And she used to say, oh, Arthur, he's a wonderful man, you know. Oh, he's so strong. And we used to put in all these little innuendos.
Will you be round later, Arthur, for your usual?
Maybe. The clever part of the writing was that it wasn't a sort of classy lady, which you'd expect because Wilson was supposed to have come from that sort of class. But here was a lady who was a very ordinary, almost working-class lady.
Gin and tonic, there we are. All right. And don't get all Nelly Dean like you did last week. Excuse me, mate. Oh, God blimey, how to do that?
Uncles and aunts and those sort of were part of people's lives, and it did keep things moving very smoothly in family circles. And unquestioned, it was Uncle.
What I can't understand is I never hear you leave and I never hear you come back in the morning.
Well, you see, I let myself in and out very quietly.
You never do anything else quietly.
After we'd finished, I in fact said to David, was John my father? He said, oh, of course he was, yes.
Come on, Frank. I'm going to have this out with Captain Mannering here and now.
My mother's such a fool.
Can't help that. Evening.
Pike was based probably on me and the rest of us boys that were in the Home Guard.
Yes? I've got an idea.
I'm delighted.
Jimmy very kindly told me after about 10 episodes that Pike was him, which thanks, Jim. Suddenly you told that you were playing the writer. It was Jimmy in that he was that age in the war and he was in the Home Guard.
What do you want now, Pike?
I'm sorry to disturb you again, Mr. Mannering, but Mrs. Mannering's on the phone again. I told her you were having coffee with Mrs. Fox, but she insisted.
You stupid boy.
I suppose he was the main foil for nearly every ambition that Mannering had.
Why don't we wrap something round the pipe to stop the flow? Yes, that's a good idea. That's right, Pike. Take off your tunic and wrap it around the pipe. Why me? Because you're wet already. Go on.
Arthur came to me one day in the rehearsal and said, Ian, don't worry about not having a lot of lines. They'll come. In the meantime, he said, get yourself a funny costume and stand near me.
Pike. You must not wear a coloured scarf with your uniform. How many times do I have to tell you? Take that off at once.
Oh, my mum says I mustn't take it off. I get croup.
When Britain is in danger, when trouble's in the air, we all forget our squabbles, it's restlessness beware. The nation is united when danger looms in sight. We march along together and...
Now, the world of Warmington-on-Sea is pre-war, because even in the middle of the war, things were pre-war, because they didn't have time to be post-war till after the war, because with the war on,
So the society that Mannering was a pillar of was a very rigid one. You've got the town clerk, the Rotary Club, the Golf Club. No wonder nobody could stand Hodges, who's only a flipping greengrocer.
United we shall stand, whatever may befall, the richest...
There's a wonderful variety of ages within the main group. You've got the Spiv Walker, who's old enough to fight and has obviously fiddled his way out of it. You've got a stupid boy Pike, who's too young to fight, but he's too young to be out of an evening, according to his mother. And then there's Jonesy, Clive Dunn, who joined the army in 1880-something and gave the Fuzzy Wuzzies a good seeing to, and is prepared to do the same to the Jerrys. Taste of the cold steel, they don't like it up them, you know.
I've just been struck by something deadly. I look at it this way. We're now all put in possession of highly secret information. Now, supposing we was captured by an enemy agent, sir, how long could we stand out against torture before we revealed ourselves? I spent 4 years in a prisoner of war camp, you see. Working for Hitler, of course. And up a mountainside digging and God knows what else. So, when I had this part, it was like a sort of revenge for me. I could say, I could be aggressive. And it was like a wonderful, happy revenge for that.
I signed on as a drummer boy in 1884. Later, saw service in the Sudan. Fought the Fuzzy Wuzzies. Fuzzy Wuzzies, they were the boys. They come at you with a great long knife and zip you right open. I soon find out if you've got any guts or not.
The part of Corporal Jones was based on a real-life character. An old soldier that had been with me in the Home Guard.
They don't like the cold steel, you see, sir. They don't like it up 'em, you see, sir. They don't like the... Get him a chair.
This instructor we had, a regular soldier, probably 30 years, been in the 1418 war, he used to say, look at the bayonet. You've got to understand the cold steel. They don't like it up 'em. They do not like it up 'em. They can't abide the cold steel. So show 'em the cold steel. And you think, well, who wants it up?
When I saw it in the script, they don't like it up 'em. I thought, that's a bit offensive. And I thought, well, what would an old butcher who'd been in all those campaigns, he would say that, you know. I mean, he would say, they don't like it up 'em.
There's no substitute for the cold steel. They do not like it up 'em. They don't like it up 'em. I might have mentioned that to you before.
Well, the British love that sort of humour, don't they? So I gave it the full works. They don't like it up 'em, sir.
Grab him, Pike. You do that again, you get this up you, and you will not like it.
I wanted to make sure that I got what we used to call Joey Joeys.
The Joey Joeys were really a short term for the obvious gag, like the red hot poker up the bum.
Platoon, attend, cut.
Captain Manning was very frustrated by Jones, although he admired him in a way, but he was such a silly man and making silly suggestions.
Any suggestions? Mr. Speaker, sir. Yeah. What about a tunnel, sir? Tunnel? Yes, sir. See, we all go round behind that wall and we can dig a hole in a downwards direction, sir. Down and down and down, then suddenly we start digging sideways, so sideways. Then when we think round to the mill, start digging upwards, and God willing, we'll be in the mill.
Or else in Australia.
I think you're in the realms of fantasy again here, Jones.
It was a time of great hardship, and yet, you know, it showed how resourceful people are in those times. And that hardship was obviously great raw material for comedy. With, you know, Corporal Jones being able to do sausages for people.
You got any sausages?
Hold on.
When the war's on, butchers are the kings of the area. You know, everybody has to keep going nicely with the butcher. You know, and Jack Jones sort of rather enjoyed that situation, I think.
I bought that for you.
Oh, what's this?
Your favourite tobacco.
Oh, thank you very much, madam.
And I'll be in later in the week.
He was quite sort of romantic in a way, and he was mad about Mrs. Fox, you know, played by Pamela Condell so deliciously.
Well, she was a flirt. There's no getting away from it. I mean, she made a play for Mr. Jones, the butcher, because she wanted sausages and she wanted kidneys.
I'm only a humble butcher, you know. Is it true affection she feels for me? Does she love me for myself? Or does she love me for my meat?
They decided, Jimmy and David, that we should get married. So that was lucky for me, because it was a lovely episode. Oh, it was gorgeous.
No confetti! No confetti!
I'm going to throw confetti, so Yarman sucks to you.
It's not only Jonesy who has some wonderful one-liners, the whole show's full of them.
We first became aware that it was becoming very popular when people shout, you know, workmen up on a roof say, "Oi, Jonesy! Hey, don't get up!" Or they'll shout, "Don't panic!" You know.
Don't panic!
Stupid boy.
But Mr. Speaker, he's doomed!
You stupid boy.
We never thought of catchphrases as such. Oh, we'll put these in and they'll catch on. They just happened.
You stupid boy.
Certain things sort of crept in, and the public picked them up, really.
Oh, wet, Mr. Mannering!
Stupid boy.
See, the fact is they do not like it up them. They can't stand it, you see. They really can't.
It's hard to analyse a catchphrase and decide whether it's intrinsically funny out of context, because what we know of those catchphrases is people repeating themselves now in the light of it having been on Dad's Army for however many years. So when someone says "Don't panic" or "Stupid boy," it's loaded with all the kind of comedy baggage of being in a very, very successful sitcom.
Number, please. Warmington-on-Sea. I've forgotten the number.
You stupid boy. It's Warmington-on-Sea. Just a moment.
All the main characters have the thing that they do, which is the thing that the original audience would have really latched onto, like Fraser's rolling eye, Jonesy doing his drill a beat after everybody else, Godfrey always wanted to be excused. But they actually all do many, many more things than that, which is why I think you can watch the programmes a lot and they don't pall.
John! Wasn't awfully good, was it?
You used to start, I think, every programme virtually with a line-up, because it's a useful way of introducing everybody.
What's in your pockets, Walker?
That's a pound of granulated and that's a pound of sultanas.
I really must check this sort of thing, you know, before I inspect the troops.
It's disgraceful, Walker. Absolutely disgraceful. If you do that kind of thing again, you'll just have to throw it into the dustbin.
Well, it makes no odds to me. I mean, you've paid for them.
Jimmy Beck's character, Private Walker, I think they were called spivs in those days. He was the one that could get you anything. He could get you your nylons or lipstick or whatever.
He was able to make a few bob out of the war, as people were then. But it was still part of that community. He wasn't selling, Walker wasn't selling something, you know, huge to an outside sort of country or something. It was all done within that little framework.
You always got the girl. But of course, you see, the character is going to say he did. So it's up to you to make up your mind whether he did. He was the only one who could get the girl, let's face it.
This is a friend of mine, Mr. Mannering, Edith Parrish.
Parrish? Have you an occupation, Miss Parrish?
Yes, I'm an usherette. My character in Dad's Army was Private Walker's girlfriend. She wasn't exactly a good time girl, but she liked a bit of fun. There was never anything of any sexual thing at all. That would be totally wrong.
Now, we all know that the Second World War brought out the best in us. We had brilliant teeth, we could make a pretty good sponge cake from 2 carrots and a hairnet, and we could do all the actions from underneath the spreading chestnut tree. But while Dad's Army is about that war, what adds an extra layer to it, I think, is that you're watching people who actually fought in that war. And as a setting for a comedy programme, war is brilliant, because you don't have to have any really nasty characters, because you've got the biggest baddie in the world, the one that you're all united to fight against, Hitler.
And And it wasn't until we were actually in this setting up in the street, he said, I've just read the script. I have to have a bomb in my trousers.
He wouldn't have it. I don't know why he didn't have it. Anyway, they decided to put it down my trousers.
One of the cleverest rewrites I've ever come across in my life. Dave and Jimmy said, we've got the rewrites. They handed him the script and they just crossed out Mannering and put Jones. So he's hoisted his own petard and had to go along with it.
I was very, very happy. I was always happy to have a bomb put down my trousers. In terms of comedy, I mean, apparently he had an agreement with David Croft when he started to arrange what he was going to do in the show. He wouldn't do any scenes where he had to remove his trousers.
Now that the crisis is past, do you mind asking Fraser to take his hand out of my trousers?
That's the nearest approach to pornography ever got in the programme, I think.
The Deadly Attachment was very much a favourite episode with us. It was, I suppose, when you get a really strong situation and a crisis like that, it's very easy to lay it through.
See this captain here? Oh, yeah? This surly brute, watch him.
I played the U-boat commander. Myself and my crew had been captured, and they found out immediately, early on in the programme, that Dad's army have to look after us until the official army arrive.
Bring the platoon face to face with the Germans, because in reality they never were, virtually, so we couldn't use...
And this was one line, one episode, that went out once. And the next day, in the street, people shouted across them, "Don't tell him, Pike." That was quite extraordinary.
Could be nicer, could be sweeter, could be better, could be smarter, could be cuter, baby, than yours.
This is Warmington-on-Sea. All right, it isn't. There's no such place. I know that. I work in television. But this is Thetford, where the Dad's Army team came for 2 weeks every year to do all their location filming for the whole series. And I can't show you Stead and Simpson or Timothy White's or the Novelty Rock Emporium closed for the duration. But if you think about it, Warmington-on-Sea wouldn't have those places now either.
I'm gone, I'm hooked.
There's still an undertaker's and a butcher's. Is there a bank still? Hey, Pikey would be about 70 now. He could be walking up down here, ordering kebab and chips, nipping into the Sue Ryder shop. He's not real, stupid boy. Hey, here's a tip. If you want your comedy show to be watched and enjoyed 30 years after it was written, set it in the past. Then it's already dated, and it can't date, which I thought of.
Mr. Manring, it went jidder-jadder and tore me trousers off.
Are you all right?
I've lost that which I hold most dear. My pocketbook and discharge papers.
I remember Thetford well because we went there year after year.
He's only lost his trousers.
And the people were pleased to see you know, and the pubs around and the typical English town, really. I mean, we liked it.
Arthur Lowe used to come up by coach. He liked to come up by coach, you see. He could lord it a bit sitting in the coach. Very nice, your countryside, pleasant, don't have to drive, all this sort of thing. And working out if they'd got the message at the tobacconist for his special fags, you see, when he got up there, all that would go on, you know. Never mind about what we were going to do filming, that was, you know, that was another world.
I used to drive up with John LeMessurier mostly, he's my mate. And the Bell Hotel, I mean, there was plenty of booze in the boat, and we all met at mealtime. It was an extraordinary situation, really. It was quite good fun.
Jimmy and David always had the most extraordinary luck with the weather. I mean, people used to say, well, if you're planning your summer holidays in England, do it at the time when Dad's Army's on location, because they always get marvellous weather.
It's like being allowed into a gentleman's exclusive club, because they were all absolute sweethearts in their own way.
We worked very hard during the day's filmings. I mean, there's no question about that.
We'd get up and we'd go down to breakfast. Arthur would probably complain about the kippers or something.
We got, I think I had a little ham this morning. Is it off the bone? You say to the waiter, it's off the bone. Clive wandering about looking for his boots. I didn't know somebody put my boots on my denim bed there. Anybody got me? It's probably in your room, Clive. Better go down there, go and have a look.
Some of them were distinctly sort of middle-aged and over, and the wives came to look after them, and we'd have a break in the morning, tea, coffee, whatever, and the wives would be fussing around. I mean, this was a film in itself.
I tell you, Arnold Ridley was the funniest to me. His wife, she used to drive him to Thetford and things like that, you know. And she used to have to go and get the food from the, you know, the wagon. And he did boss her about a lot.
I think I'd say, darling, you sit there and I'd get you a cup of tea now. And they'd go, yes, dear. So, yes, yes.
Godfrey?
Can I have your assistance, sir?
Look your front. And don't wear your hat straight on your head like that. Look like George Formby.
Private Godfrey was a wonderful invention.
Oh, would you mind holding that, sir?
And perfectly cast with Arnold Ridley, because he was so gentle and sweet.
Godfrey!
Did someone call?
Godfrey, he was the nurse, wasn't he? Well, if there was anyone in need of medical attention, it was probably him.
But of course, we got enormous comedy out of the way they all had to help him into the van and things like that. That all his disabilities were an enormous advantage from the comedy point of view.
Did he ever do anything? Did he? Because he always had his, Red Cross box on. I don't think he ever owned it. Did he? Did he?
Jones has got a bout of malaria. Have we got anything we can give him?
I don't know. Oh, yes, sir. I've got some aspirin, bicarbonate of soda. Yes, and some ointment for wasp stings.
Wasp stings? This is a fighting unit, not a Girl Guides outing. What would you do if one of us was wounded?
I said, Arnold, are you up to this? I think he was about 73 or 4 at the time. Because I don't think I can protect you from actually having to run occasionally and are you up to it? And he said, oh, yes, I think so. Yes, I think I'll manage.
We made a rush across the field with fixed bayonets or whatever we do running. It was quite sort of hard work. I'd do it quite a lot. He used to let Arnold Ridley off, and that annoyed John Laurie, because I think they were more or less the same age. I can't be absolutely sure.
While we're rushing here and there and running the flag up the pole, old Godfrey will still be trying to climb out of the van.
There's no doubt about it. They were genuinely out of breath from time to time. And, it added to the pathos of the fact that poor old devils, they were trying to keep up, as it were, trying to do it.
Sure, this isn't very good for the heart.
They found the biggest roles of their life when they thought their careers had finished, because they're all pushing it a bit.
Well done. Don't give up.
And they thought they were sort of curtains for them, and suddenly they had this terrific new lease of life.
Mannering. I can't leave him his senses.
John Laurie, who was then in his mid-70s, had worked at the Old Vic with Gielgud, Olivier, and all the greats, and was a fine classical actor.
He'd tell you it was the greatest King Lear that they ever had there. He was a very modest fellow.
This is Private Fraser.
Howdy. News the day and news the hour. See the front of battle lure, and see the proud Hitler's London tour, slaves and slavery. War would be a traitor name. War should basis be a slave. War would fill a coward's grave. Turn and flee.
I can remember his once saying to Jimmy Perry, you know, Jimmy, I played all the great Shakespearean roles at Stratford between the wars, and now I've become a household name doing this rubbish of yours.
He said, Jimmy Perry, I think this is a load of rubbish. We'll check at the end of the week, but I don't think there's any chance of it being a success. Mark my words. Well, and then when it was, of course, then went up to Jimmy and after the secretary, of course, I never had any doubt it would be a success. Great laddie, great.
Captain Mannering, did he ever hear the story of the old empty barn?
No.
Would he like to hear the story of the old empty barn?
I just used to dish up all that stuff. He was doing that in Will Hay films 40 years beforehand.
The story of the old empty bar. Well, there was nothing in it.
There's something about a soldier, something about a soldier, something about a soldier that is fine, fine, fine.
It did them an awful lot of good because, as far as the cast were concerned, they were all getting on, you know, quite old. And I think it did them a lot of good to sort of wave them about in the fresh air every spring. And we had enormous fun.
We were all let off the leash at night and wandering about the pubs, you know, bumping into one another. And the ones that pretended they didn't drink, you'd see them looking a bit furtive. You got to know the cast.
And we'd all go down to the bar. And Arthur would be on the stool, immaculately dressed, slightly red in the face, and with what he called an Amazon, which was a gin with ginger ale and one, not two, one slice of cucumber in it. And he'd be propped up against the bar, well, and we'd all drift in. I don't know why we all dressed up. We did. And we'd yarn.
I remember Arthur saying to David Croft one day about me, he said, where'd you get this fella from? David said, well, he's been in variety. I said, really? That's if, you know.
Why don't you pick on someone your own size? Come on, try having a go at me. Come on, come on.
Hold my glasses, Wilson.
I think I was a bit of an outsider to start with.
Peter, don't you tangle with him. In your crippled state, I'd do it for you, sir.
I was as if I was somebody looking in. That was a strange feeling I had, looking into this group of seven, you know.
Bill Pertley, bless his heart, who played Hodges, he's a sort of villain of the piece.
I became sort of Mannering's private Hitler.
I suppose it was with great pleasure that the writers wrote, if there's any water around, that he would get it.
I took the brunt of a few of the stunts.
He was terribly good-natured about it.
Oh, here we go again!
One of the situations was a bit alarming.
There's an object coming out of the waters.
Oh, good, good. Won't be long now.
When we were doing a late-night filming at Lowestoft, about 2 o'clock in the morning, and the boat I was in overturned with me, and the water got underneath the strap of my helmet. By the time I came out, I was all right, you know, I just sort of gurgled a bit and spat a bit of water out. Everybody had gone. There was only one person left. They'd all gone to the next shot. So I was somewhere else. And I said, where is everybody? They said, we're gone. Never mind about me out of the boat.
And then we couldn't chuck him in the water anymore because we were filming in rivers and there were rats in them.
The health and safety don't like comedy, as far as I can see. But in those days, if you wanted to chuck something in a river, you could do so, and usually it was Bill.
But as long as I got the cheque at the end of the week.
We're very fond of you, and I forget to do.
That summer, the show reached its highest viewing figures yet. Firmly established as a hit comedy, it seemed the platoon was unstoppable.
The first person to die amongst this old cast, unfortunately, was Jimmy Beck, and that was a great shock to us all. He became ill. We were on vacation, actually, and I think he was hovering for about a fortnight, or at death's door, as it were.
Jimmy dying so young, at 39, presented a lot of difficulties, because no way would we have recast that part. And I'm afraid he was a very, very heavy drinker, and it just got him in the end.
The next episode, when it was obvious Jimmy was not going to be in it, in that last episode of the series, it's very sad, very poignant. The camera goes along the line and comes to a gap. And there's a note where he would have been standing.
Captain Mannering, personal. Oh.
Personal?
Yeah.
Give it to me.
All right. Unusual perfume. Petrol.
Dear Cap, thanks for letting me off. Had to go up to the spoke for a few days. to do a deal. I think
It was a shock. And of course, from a selfish point of view, we thought, my God, what's going to happen to the programme? Are we still going to be able to do it? So it was awful for his wife and for all his friends. It was a bad time, really bad time.
Yeah, something went, most certainly. Despite the success of what the 4 or 5 series that we did without you after, but there's something wasn't there. There's no doubt about that.
Just the thought of you, the very thought of you, my love.
So there was an effort made to replace Jimmy. It was an impossible task. I mean, you couldn't take over from somebody like him.
In the next series, a lovely Welsh actor called Talfrin Thomas, how cheeks like that, Mr. Cheeseman. He was on the local newspaper, the Warmington Bugle, and he was war correspondent, and he had a armband with WC on the side.
What's there?
All that? That's so as everyone knows what I do.
What do you do?
Well, WC, war correspondent.
John Lloyd came to me once day. He said, James, can I have a word, please? He said, is yon Welsh fella going to be in the next series? I said, I don't know. He said, well, make sure he isn't. He's getting far too many laughs. Totally rude. And Talfrin was not in the next series, and he was so funny. So very, very funny.
30 years on, the show remains as fresh as ever. But inevitably, many of that wonderful cast are no longer with us.
I think it's rather sad that Arthur and John and some of the other actors never lived to see the extent of the full fame that Dad's Army reached.
I never mind watching it when I turn it on, and actually my children like it. My 2 oldest children are 7 and 5.5, and they find it funny, which is great. I think one of the things that they like about it is it's grown-ups being silly and trying to be serious, you know, and sort of coming undone as a result, and they enjoy that side of it.
I met a little boy the other day in a shop, and his daddy said, Mrs. Fox, and I said, can you meet my son? So he came up, we shook hands. So we had a little talk, and I said to him, now, why do you like Dad's Army? And he said, because it's funny and not rude. Now, out of the mouths of babes, it was absolutely wonderful.
What do you think of this?
Oh, it's awful. No, it's awfully good. Awfully good. Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
What's it, Wilson? You might snap your girdle.
But a few years ago, I was at a charity event at St James's Palace, and I was introduced to the Queen Mother, and she likes people to stand in a semicircle. She doesn't like straight lines. And I said to her, I do believe, Ma'am, that I was in a programme which is a favourite of yours. And she said, what's that? I said, Dad's Army. And she went, oh, yes. And she addressed the whole ensemble all there. She said, you know what it's like when you've had a bad day, and you come home and you put your feet up and you pop on a video, and there you are, laughing again.
I think there is a nostalgic thing about Dad's Army which people value, and it is looking back on something which one sort of in a way longs for. Not the horrors of war, but the feeling of community, the feeling of belonging to one another. And I think that's important.
The British public behaved very well at that particular time, and we took advantage of that. And I think that's one of the appeals of the programme.
it showed the spirit, which sadly is lacking today, that people had about pulling together and keeping our country safe.
That is an aspect of it, but I don't relate to that at all. I mean, I had, like a lot of people, a foul war, and wouldn't want to go back to that, no.
60 years since the real Dad's Army, the Home Guard, was formed to defend our shores. 30 years since Arthur Lowe and John Le Mesurier went into the studio to record the first episode. It's 2 different lifetimes away, but we're still watching them. Mannering struggling to maintain his dignity, Wilson very rarely losing his, Godfrey just having to be excused for a moment, and all the other brave soldiers marching breathlessly across yet another field to make us laugh again and again and again.
I think there are some wonderful comedy shows around now. I don't think all old comedy is good, but what I think Dad's Army has got, which is quite a rarity in entertainment now, is that it's celebratory and it's positive and it's innocent. It's got some fantastically wonderful performances, and it's, whatever the opposite of a one-note samba is, it's just full of wit, pathos, character, slapstick farce, overplaying, underplaying. It's stuff full. It's like a draft excluder.
What? Well, look, you know what I mean.
Keep young and beautiful. It's your duty to be beautiful. Keep young and beautiful if you want to be loved.
Stick together. You can rely on that. Anybody tries to take our homes or our freedom away from us, they'll find out what we can do. We'll fight. And we're not alone. There are thousands of us all over England.
And Scotland.
And Scotland. All over Great Britain, in fact. Men who'll stand together when their country needs them.
Don't you think it might be a nice idea if we were to pay our tribute to them?
For once, Wilson, I agree with you. To Britain's Home Guard.
The Britain's Home Guard.
The black is the friend.